felt that Airbnb was doing an incredible job connecting owners with guests.
Companies like Airbnb that offer short-term rentals typically at a fraction of the price are booming.
But we felt anything that comes after the booking, there is a void. People that have a second home or investment property that are not physically present. That layer of complexity, that layer of operational depth, I think traditional PMSs, they just didn't have that perspective. And that's why we built all these things. Yeah, and that's how RentalReady came about, actually. Maya AI, we solve over 50% on average of the guest messages. The best client actually was able to solve 82% of their guest messages, which was really cool to see. And actually, the difference is also really, again, in the data. The more data AI has, the more it can respond.
Property management at scale is about more than just rent rolls and maintenance calls. It's about protecting your assets, delivering stellar guest experiences, and scaling operations without losing quality. Welcome to Minute by Minute, the show where industry leaders share unfiltered stories, proven strategies, and real solutions for operating at scale. I'm your host, Nils Mattisson, CEO of Minut, and together we will dive deep into what it really takes to keep your properties safe, efficient, and protected. Let's get started. Today I'm joined by Alexander Limpert, co-founder and CEO of GuestReady, one of the more globally scaled short-term rental management platforms operating today, with a portfolio that consists of thousands of units. Alex is also the co-founder and CEO of RentalReady, a comprehensive AI-powered PMS for the operational side of property management. In this conversation, we'll explore what it takes to scale across borders, the decision that led to building a proprietary software solution while GuestReady was still in its early days, finding the balance between people and technology in the guest experience, and where hospitality is heading next. Alex, welcome to Minute by Minute. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here, Niels. I've been a big fan of what you're building with Minut and also your journey over the years, and glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. Let's start with your journey. How did you get into the short-term rental industry? And was it a conscious decision or something that happened more organically?
Well, it's maybe not the way how most people start in our industry, but I guess everybody starts different anyway. My angle into short-term rentals was more through a platform idea, a service provider idea. We saw that short-term rentals were becoming super popular everywhere globally already 10 years ago, especially with the rise of Airbnb. And we felt that Airbnb was doing an incredible job in connecting owners with guests, having this platform layer. But we felt that anything that comes after the booking, there is a void. Of course, there's the hosts and the owners that love to host themselves and that are physically present. But there's also people that have a second home or investment property that are not physically present, that maybe are not super tech savvy, or that also just don't have the time. And we felt that there is an opportunity for somebody more vertically integrated that takes care of more than just connecting the guest with the owner. And that also reflected my experience in a different industry. I was in food delivery before, and also there we initially just had a platform connecting restaurants with people that wanted to order food. Turns out restaurants are good at cooking the food, but not very good at delivering the food. So although we just wanted to be a platform connecting the dots and not getting involved in operations, we in the end decided that we do want to take care of the operational layer too. So actually bringing the food from the restaurants to the end consumer. And that made the whole experience just so much better for the restaurants and also for the end consumer. And we think that we do the same here in short-term rentals for owners, for guests, bringing a better experience to them. That was always the idea from the beginning, that for owners, we take care of everything, and we, for guests, bring the best of a home together with service standards of the home. So that was the original idea. Evolved a bit over time, I would say, but it's still at the core, that idea.
So you'd say the problem stays the same, but perhaps the solution has changed as the company has scaled, and of course 10 years has passed. So the ecosystem maybe looks a little bit different.
Indeed. Actually, the first idea we had, so the first approach to this, solving this problem, was more a very light marketplace where Airbnb hosts or short-term rental owners, they could book a cleaning, a linen service with us, and then we would come and clean their property. But what we felt is that most owners actually prefer that somebody takes care of their property end to end of the whole booking process. They don't want to have such a fracture in the process in between, that they are dealing with the guest on one side and then with us on the other side. And we felt the same, that it's better if it comes all out of one hand. And that was then the second iteration. And I think now the third iteration is really that with GuestReady, we're building a true hospitality company. We're not just a property manager. We're building a true hospitality company that is quite guest focused as well, and not just owner focused. In the beginning, we're really focused on the owner, delivering a great experience to them. Of course, to deliver a great owner experience, we also need to do the best for their guests. But now we're putting guests much more front and center with everything that we're doing.
One thing that I've always been impressed by with you is that you're not afraid to build your own things. And very early on, you invested heavily in building more software, which is now GuestReady. What did you feel was missing in the software solutions back in the day, and why did you decide to do that investment?
Yeah, so we always knew that we needed technology to scale. We had ambitions to build a large business, a globally leading business that can scale across different markets, that can empower and hosts and bring the guest experience at scale to guests and deliver great quality. And we knew that if we wanted to scale and deliver great quality, we needed to have technology to coordinate all the different aspects. And what we found is that traditional PMSs that probably don't have the operational insights that we had as a property manager, they are much more focused on maybe listing management, calendar management, and so on. But what we found as operating the business is that it's actually easy to get a booking. The hard part comes afterwards. And especially if you scale to more than just a handful of properties, it becomes increasingly complex. And I think, most property management systems, they're somewhere, I would say, dreamed up in a lab from some software engineers that never managed the property themselves. And we really knew these operational realities. So it's about, how do you clean properties perfectly? How do you stay on track of all these tasks? How to make sure that the check-in process is super smooth across different check-in methods, such as decentralized key storage or smart locks and so on. And how do you make sure that the owners receive the right amount of money at the end of the months? And how do you prevent their questions by giving them the information they need at their fingertips? For example, we have built a mobile app. I think we're one of the few PMSs that actually have a native mobile app that RentalReady property managers, including GuestReady, those property managers can give to their owners. Stuff like that. I think, also things that are different in each market. In some markets, you have to submit guest details to authorities, and you want to have a good way, an automated way to do that. The same for city taxes, and just automating all this work that our team at GuestReady was working on. And I think that's something that layer of complexity, that layer of operational depth, I think traditional PMSs, they just didn't have that perspective. And that's why we built all these things. And and that's how RentalReady came about, actually.
Yeah, it sounds to me like almost like the business model came first. You wanted to create this quite vertically integrated company because it delivers a better experience for guests and owners alike. And then out of that requirement came the decision to build RentalReady. Would that be?
It's absolutely right. We never said that we need to build it in-house. It was a necessity that we built these solutions, and we see that they work now also for our clients of RentalReady extremely well. But yeah, initially this was not the idea. Initially our idea was more, I mentioned it before, I came from food delivery. So it was more like Uber Eats, Uber kind of idea, right? We're building a platform, we're building great software to coordinate all these operations, but we're just doing this for us internally. And we always saw the technology actually as our secret sauce, and why giving that away? So that was actually a big step. I mean, we did get requests from others in the industry. Hey, sounds really cool what you build at RentalReady, but can we get access to? And we always said, like, look, Uber doesn't give their technology to other taxi companies, right? It's their proprietary IP, and they leverage that in-house, but they're not empowering other taxi companies. Well, when we thought a bit about it a bit more, we in the end felt that our industry is very different than ride-hailing or food delivery. Those are extreme winner-takes-it-all markets where we all know as consumers there's maybe one or two such platform that is really strong in each market. But when we look at our industry, I mean, there's like hundreds of property managers, hundreds of hospitality companies in each single market. It's very, very fragmented. And in the end, I believe we're competing more against ourselves than against others in this space. So it's really about how good is really our service. And therefore, we then said, well, if the market is so fragmented anyway, and we're not really competing against other players, then why don't we just empower them too? And it's also with GuestReady, we're focused on a few main markets, and there are many, many, many other markets where we're even not present. And even in the markets where we are, it's so vast. Then that's the moment when we said, hey, let's actually leverage this technology for others too, and monetize it so that we can invest even more in the technology and make it even better.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I really like about this industry is that it is quite collaborative, because most of the players are not directly competing. It might be a property manager in Switzerland with only properties in Switzerland, and you're not going to directly compete with someone in Spain. And that creates this environment where people are actually incentivized to help each other out, because it's more about growing the community and the market as a whole.
Yeah, fully agreed. And it's really even surprising to me that even in markets itself, right? We have clients at RentalReady that we've been supporting in Paris or London or Lyon or many other markets where GuestReady is present over years. And I'm always very happy when I see them grow. I want to empower them. I think that's the vision for us at RentalReady, to empower them as much as we empower GuestReady. And if they're in the end better than GuestReady, so be it. May the better win. I think that's the idea. I mean, the goal of GuestReady is that we grow, we build a great business here for owners and for guests, and for RentalReady. The idea is that we provide that we support and empower all the hospitality providers out there, the short-term rental managers, apart hotel managers, and so on.
And before you became founder, you were in operations, we talked about, in food delivery, but you also did some consulting work. What are some of the things that you brought from those industry to becoming a founder? And what did you think you knew that sort of broke down when faced with reality?
Yeah, so it seems like a former life almost, the days that I was a consultant and just on the sidelines rather than building things myself. I prefer building things myself. I like that a lot. I think that's why I'm here in this role now. But consulting was also great for learning. And I think one thing that we always did extremely well is being data-driven. And not just data-driven for the sake of it. One thing that will always stay with me, the question that we always asked at Oliver Wyman, the company that I was at when we looked at data, is so what, right? You can look at data the whole day, and you can create lots of reports for your team. But in the end, if there's no actionable insight, something that informs your decision, that you will go away and say like, okay, I looked at this data and now I'm going to do X, Y, Z, then it's not very useful, right? It's about what do we take from that? And another thing as well is we always need to have some level of skepticism about data. If it looks off, then my experience is that likely there is something off. And and likely we need to go back and check, has there been a mistake in the data and so on. Because there's a lot that can go wrong. And we also know this saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? If the data is not good, then also the decisions that it will take are not going to be good. So I think these themes around data and then also project management, I mean, these were months-long projects, lots of people involved. And that was super helpful to understand, how do you break down a bigger project or a big problem? How do you break that down into smaller pieces and make it actionable? Because also having a big project in front of you or a big problem, it can be daunting, it can be difficult. If we break it down into smaller pieces, then it becomes much more addressable and we feel better at it, and we take one step after another, and we actually feel good that we're getting closer to what we want to achieve.
Yeah, that's the almost contradiction built into most startups, right? You're very ambitious, and you have to be a bit fearless attacking the big problems, but it can seem quite daunting when you start out.
Indeed. And you make this startup analogy, and as startups and any company that's being built, you always see a million things that should still be better and that you still want to do. And then this can feel daunting, but sometimes it's also good to just look back where we were 3 months or 6 months ago or a year ago. And we always see, oh, wow, actually all the steps that we took, they really added to a lot of progress already. So that's really also what keeps me going, to see how much we're progressing, how much we've been building with the team, and how much better we're now than just a couple of months ago. It's really good.
Yeah. Another thing I like about startups is you're speaking about data. I find data is often trailing the actions, right? Like, so you often have to act on a bit of intuition and do things, and then maybe you can look at the data to see what happened. But you often don't have the luxury of doing an analysis before you dive headfirst into something.
Indeed. Yeah, creating initial data, doing a pilot, a test, and then see what the data says, and then based on that, go forward. And one thing that, talking about data, I learned more building a startup is that our lagging indicators and leading indicators, and often we focus too much on lagging indicators. So we focus on how many new properties did I bring live, how many, how much was my booking revenue last month. But the leading indicators are maybe things like, how quickly do I answer the phone to new prospective hosts, or how well do I serve my guests? Because if we do these actions that in the end result in bookings, if we do these actions well, then the lagging indicators will move. If we're just focused on the lagging indicators, then we're seeing more the output, but we're not really seeing, we can't really optimize it by itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. And of course, those indicators are also changing as you scale. So when you're first starting out, like that hustle might be super important, but you're running thousands of units now. So how would you say those challenges have changed along the way? Like, what are the things that you are focused on now as a larger company compared to when you were first starting?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and at each point in the journey, the challenges, both managerial but also operational, become quite different. I think in the beginning it's just getting started, figuring out the basics of the business, the smaller steps. So, well, how do I get the cleaning right? How do I synchronize different listings across the platforms? How do I maybe form simple rule-based automations, like a booking comes in and then a text goes out to the guest saying, sending a few information about the check-in, about the stay, and so on. So just the basics for managing the booking. And maybe on a team management side, it's just you as a founder, and maybe you have like 1-2 people helping out with cleaning and a few operational parts. But then when you get to a few dozen properties, things really start to change. And I think here you might then be a few people in the team. The more the portfolio grows, maybe the less it's easy to keep all the information about every single property top of mind, and it's a important moment to document everything. And that's, for example, something that we also learned. We need a very good system. And again, most PMSs, they maybe don't capture that fully. They like we had to have a spreadsheet with all the information per property, and we don't want to have a spreadsheet. We want to have this information about every single property living in the PMS, because that data will be leveraged across different elements of the system. It will be leveraged in the task management system for the cleaning, for linen, and so on. It will be leveraged in the guest space for guests. It will be leveraged in guest communication. It's accessed now by AI and so on. Obviously, when we built the system, it was more for our internal team. Now it's also for AI. But it's very important that we have everything about the property in our system, be it how does the boiler work, where are the fuse boxes located, and so on, because sometimes guests will ask something and we can't say, oh, sorry, I haven't been at the property, I don't really know where it is. That's really important, this structured information, and then also how to keep on track of all the different tasks, because every day there will be dozens of check-ins, and how to stay on top of these tasks, having a really good task management system for that. And then I think the next level is really when you get into the hundreds of properties, and then the team grows to a size where it's not only anymore about the property information, task management, and staying on top of that, but actually staying on top of who is doing what in the team, and avoiding overlaps, and avoiding that two people work on the same thing, like replying to the same guest, or taking care of something that you need to do in the property, but at the same time also not missing out on something. So for example, for the mailbox that we build in RentalReady, multiple people can work on this. It's more like a ticketing system. Everybody knows who replied what. There's a log. We also have a log for each property, if anything changed, the pricing, the information, and so on. So it's not like, oh, who changed this? Like, actually, we just go. You can go back to the log and just see it there, right? Things like that are becoming really important. Or we found ourselves as well that with dozens of team members in lengthy Slack conversations about some, hey, we have to update this in this listing. And then it's like people commenting, no, I think maybe we should update it this way. And then in the end, it's like 20 people and 100 messages in a Slack thread, and nobody knows actually, has it been updated now or not? So what we built is then an integration to a proper ticketing system, we had ClickUp back then, but it's similar to any other system like Monday.com or Asana or so on. And then eventually we built this in-house now. And I think that's also something really powerful now in RentalReady, because it's not only anymore about the tasks outside the office, but also the tasks that we need to do inside the office, related to listing descriptions, related to maybe finance flows, and so on and so forth. And that's what becomes really important at this stage, with dozens of employees and hundreds of properties.
Yeah, I think the sort of next frontier on AI, as I see it in property management, is like you're going to have different agents collaborating with the same property and the same guest. And I think we're going to run into exactly that problem that you're describing with people, that you have almost like race conditions, like who is responding first and who is responsible for what. And I think those are some quite interesting questions when we are building the software at MîNUT as well. We've gone from, like, our first agent started with the support tickets, but then we realized that, like, the same agent that is good at sort of looking at our production systems and debugging customers systems is not also going to be great at speaking to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So we started realizing, like, okay, well, how do you orchestrate these things? And then how do you orchestrate like a team that is both like AI and people? You were very early on with Maya. Is this something that you're seeing as well when you're deploying your agents?
Yeah, indeed. We were, I think, the first PMS to integrate with OpenAI back more than 2 years ago in 2023, actually, and it's been a long journey in AI and with many different iterations over time as well. In the beginning, it was sort of an AI button that you can create a reply. It was extremely costly and slow also, and now what we achieve is that with Maya AI we solve over 50% on average of the guest messages directly, with even out any person needing to look at that, and the best client actually was able to solve 82% of their guest messages, which was really cool to see. And actually the difference is also really, again, in the data. The more data AI has, the more it can respond to, right? And it's I mean, that's one agent for the guest messaging, but we're also building agentic workflows now for task management, actually raising tasks from reviews automatically and from guest messages. And the next step is then actually also to act on these tasks. That's still a work in progress, but there's a lot that can be done here. And I think we, as an industry, it's really important that we stay on top of this and that we leverage, because we all know how operational heavy this business is, how also the margins can be thin, and anything that helps us to be more efficient, to improve the margins, but also to actually improve the customer service, because there's always more time that we actually would want to have to also focus on our guests and our owners. Anything that can help us here is just super, super good.
Yeah, hospitality is like such a warm human industry, right? Like it is about connecting people, and now we see technology sort of permeating the whole experience, and of course, like, I think it adds a lot in how fast we can respond to guests with simple queries and things. But do you see some areas where it has maybe detracted from the more genuine hospitality experience?
Yeah, I think, two points come to my mind. I first wanted to respond to your point about hospitality being so warm, so human, so empathetic. And actually what I found is that AI is very good at that. And of course, we as humans, we're also very good at this. If the conditions are right, if we feel at ease, if we feel we're in our element, if we have enough time. But what also is, if you have dozens of check-ins or hundreds of check-ins on a Friday night, and the team is already stretched, and guests ask you a question, and you have dozens of other questions waiting, what I found is that as humans, we can be very brief and maybe not as empathetic. And with AI, we found the response is always very good, follows a certain logic, but is also adapt to the actual situation, and always patient, always courteous. And I think that's something that the guests have given really good feedback to Maya, and we've seen that in the reviews, actually, guests highlighting, Maya was incredibly kind and so helpful. And even some of the RentalReady customers, they call her good old Maya now. So that's, I think, on the positive side. I think on the negative side, yes, I mean, sometimes AI still hallucinates a bit, or maybe replies in a less perfect way. So that can create frictions. But if we weigh that towards the positives, I think it's very good. What I sometimes get annoyed at is if I get not tailored messages, just, and I think that's more the days before AI became good, like lots and lots of automated messages about the check-in process, and it's just not personalized at all. Filling in forms and so on. So I think there is something that we can do to limit that, and I think AI can actually be a key to that, to avoid those standard messages. Or also we all know the terrible chatbots that just repeat the same information over and over again, and all you say is like, speak to a human. We all know this. So I think there's something to be done there, but I actually see AI more as a solution to this than a problem.
Yeah, a pet peeve of mine is when you get an essay on WhatsApp in a scheduled message, and it's just like too much information. Like you want an experience where you really only get the information that you need at that time, and I think you have to really leverage everything you know about the guest, like where are they in the check-in process, who are they, and then feed them the right information at the right time and interact with them, but trigger it based on more dynamic factors than just it's 10 a.m. on check-in day.
Exactly. You're so right. And maybe it's 10 a.m., but at 9:50, the guest wrote a message that is completely unrelated to that automated message that is about to go out at 10 a.m. And that's definitely not something that we want to see, right?
So AI is obviously reshaping everything about this industry. But we're also seeing a lot of things change based on patchwork of regulations that are growing. I would say actually maybe even a bit more in the US compared to Europe, but the picture is sort of the same, that each city or country have their own rules. How have you, from GuestReady and RentalReady perspective, been affected by this, and what are some of the things you're changing in response?
Yeah, it's so true. On one side, I find this industry is incredibly global, and on the other side, it's so local, and you really have to adjust to the local realities, and otherwise, you won't be able to be successful in a local market. And for GuestReady, that's definitely meant that we need to adjust to that. And from a technology perspective, from RentalReady, also because we serve customers in hundreds of different locations, it's just paramount that it's a very flexible system that can be customized to local needs. And can serve that local reality. But yeah, it's due to different factors. It's the regulations. It's the kind of inventory that property managers manage. It can be short term. It can be midterm, apart hotel like, and then also the ways of working in each market are different. The ways of suppliers that you can tap into in London are very different than if you're in a small mountain town somewhere. So also that needs to be adjusted and needs to be also reflected in the software. So I think what's been the goal at GuestReady is to be as standardized as possible in a way to leverage global best practices and the best systems and processes globally, but then also to be as localized as needed to actually reflect that local reality and to be successful locally. And yeah, as said before, at RentalReady, it's just building a system that is flexible enough to address almost endless operational setups that are different.
And you have yourself as well moved into more multi-unit dwellings and these types of accommodation.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that's something that we see happening more and more, not just with GuestReady, but also with other clients of RentalReady, that in urban markets, and I think that's driven on the one side by regulation quite a lot, on the other side maybe also by other factors, but we see more operators moving towards part hotel-like inventory, managing small buildings, not just individual units. I mean, it's very different in non-urban markets where there are different operational and different regulatory frameworks and so on. So I think that's very different there. Also, the inventory is very different. But also on the RentalReady side, we have made a lot of work to actually be able to service this kind of inventory better, to have multi-unit capabilities on how to have like a room type logic, for example, or how to have also for smaller buildings, maybe you have one building that has 3 different rooms that you want to sell either as 3 different rooms, or you can sell the whole building to a bigger group that have like parent-child listings, things like that, common areas that need tasks attached to them, for example, to maintain the building in a certain way, and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of work that we've done in that, because that's something that we see more and more. And the same when we talk about regulation, another trend that we see is midterm becoming stronger. So not just a couple of days stays, but actually 1 month plus or 3 months plus even. And again, there, if somebody stays for 6 months, you want to have different monthly pricing, different promotions, maybe also down payment. It's okay to pay for a 4-night booking all in one go, but not for a 6-month booking. Down payments, contract management with guests, which is again something that is very uncommon. If it's short stays, nobody signs in general a contract there. So a lot of work goes into that, and helps us to operate, and helps other property managers also to operate in new segments.
Yeah, there is certainly a lot of gray areas now. We have some customers that, for example, run student housing accommodation, and there would be student housing during term time, and then there would be a short term during the summers. And so it's not just that the accommodation types themselves are becoming more on a spectrum from short term to like full rental. There's also like actually mixing the same accommodation operating in different ways in different times. So I can imagine that puts a lot of strain on the software.
Yeah, fully agreed with you. It's a whole spectrum. It's a whole combination of different unit types also in the same portfolio, and it can also change. So sometimes we see also clients of RentalReady in over the high season, short term, over the shoulder season, and long slower season do longer stays and so on. So it can also be such a mix. And as you say, student housing comes into play, and elements of co-living and so on. So it's a whole spectrum, and that's also what is super interesting and keeps this industry moving.
So with these 2 big trends, with AI shaping the industry and with regulation sort of like reshaping what was a more organically grown business, are operators prepared, or are there things you're seeing where property managers are not quite operating what they need to?
I think we as an industry are actually doing a good job staying on top of that. I think we as an industry could do, we can always still do more, right? Also raise our voice in terms of shaping the regulation. I think sometimes short-term rentals get really unfairly blamed for some housing shortages. I really think it's a very small part is related to short-term rentals, if at all. I think it's much bigger problems. And there are unfortunately other voices that are much louder than our industry. But I do understand, I recognize the problem. We have to do something about housing shortages, but I just don't think the industry is to blame. So that's maybe one thing that we can do more, and then also just being on top of it. It's good to try to shape the regulatory agenda, but if in the end we're not successful, then we gotta go with the regulatory flow. And I think some property managers are still underprepared there. And with AI, I also feel actually the industry has been very innovative, and when we look at traditional hospitality and real estate, it's maybe much more slow moving than in our industry. So that's great to see. But again, also there's still many property managers that don't use AI in their daily operational tool stack. And I think it's by this time paramount that everybody leverages AI, gets used to it. It's already incredibly powerful now, and it's only going to get more powerful. So I don't think it makes sense to wait. And I think everybody needs to have this in their tool stack.
Yeah. You don't have to convince me.
I'm sure. I know. You're always at the forefront, Nils. I know.
I try to be. So to sort of wrap up, we always ask this. What's the most unexpected thing that happened to you while building GuestReady?
Maybe not the most unexpected thing that happened to me, but I think just I could have never predicted 10 years ago how this industry has evolved, also how we evolved as a company. This question really made me reflect on where we came from, how I thought about the industry, how I thought about our business 10 years ago. And it's just completely different than what it is now. I think you've been in the industry also a while, and looking back, I was at the very beginning. Also, maybe it's just when you start a business, you're kind of obsessed with what competitors are doing. And in Europe, I was looking at B&B Sitter in France, and I was looking at Hostmaker and Air Sorted in the UK. I think we all know that at some point in time, for those of us that were around there, all of London was like plastered with ads of some of these companies. In the US, I was looking at Sonder and Vacasa for inspiration. And I always wanted to be bigger and better and faster than these players. And I think now some of these players are not around anymore, quite a few, or others. I think also we mentioned before, the industry is actually quite collaborative and not competitive. So, for example, City Relay, one player that I always admired and also looked towards. They're one of the largest property managers in the UK with hundreds of properties across London. I mean, they're now empowered by RentalReady, and I'm very proud that and actually humbled that they chose RentalReady over all the other solutions out there, and that we're now empowering them, and that we're more partners than competitors. And I think as a business, I'm much more inward looking in a way, just focusing on the solutions that we provide to guests and owners, and not so much worried about all the different trends out there. Just focused on our strategy, on our guests, on our owners, on our property managers. And then as an industry, again, I think it's often we compete maybe more against ourselves, or we compete more against hotels or hosts managing themselves. So I think it's good if we can work together and bring the industry forward together. And I think that's something that I just couldn't have seen 10 years ago, and that now I have very different perspectives on that.
Yeah, the focus on the customer might be the one thing that never changes in business.
Indeed, and I think sometimes we can just be sidetracked, and sometimes it's also different customers, right? In our space, as an operator, we have the owner, we have the guests, and I think both are incredibly important. And maybe in the beginning we had not only but more the owner in mind, and now the thinking has changed. In my mind, guests decide where to spend their money, right? They decide if they want to stay with that owner, with this property, with us. And in the end, the owner and the operator, they get something from that. But it's how do we convince this guest to stay with us in the first place, rather than staying at one of the large hotel chains, or staying at an individual host, or staying in somewhere else completely, right? And I think that's also changed over the years, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well. Let's stick around for another 10 and see what see what changes. It's been really great to have you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Nils. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Minute by Minute. If today's episode gave you fresh insight, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Share this episode with your team and follow us on social media to continue the conversation and exchange your own operational stories. To learn more about privacy-first property protection, visit MîNUT.com. Until next time, make every minute count to maintain your property's safety.